Good morning and happy Sabbath, everyone. Good morning. Good to see you all. I can see some faces coming back from vacations, long weekend, and I hope you had a great time. I want to welcome everyone who's here today. This morning, we have some guests. I noticed there's our fellow believers visiting from other towns and other states. So we welcome you and also welcome everyone joining this morning online as well. This morning, the title for the message is what? What is it on the screen? Oh, nothing. Now there is, the title here. What is the title for today's sermon? Building a supportive community, reflection on Exodus chapter 18. So now we are back to the book of Exodus. So let's do a quick review. What happened in chapter 17? Anybody remember what happened in chapter 17? Oh. So chapter 17, if you see the picture, the Israelites, they were complaining again. Why? Because they got no water again. So God asked Moses to do what? Strike the rock. Up to this point, ever since the Israelites left Egypt, they had experienced God's provision, God's protection. God had fed them through manna from heaven. God protected them through the pillar of fire and cloud. So the people of Israel, they saw those miracles happening right in their eyes every single day. But whenever the provision and there was a delay for their needs, they didn't demonstrate any sign of patience. They were very fast, quick to complain. They were very quick to angry. And in chapter 17, they were not just angry, they were mad up to the degree that they were ready to stone Moses. Are you following? They were very, very upset. So when God told Moses to strike the rock, I mean, think about it. Moses' life is on the line. And let's say I were Moses, and now I'm praying to get some water, and God is telling me, go and strike that rock. I would be very mad at God. Are you kidding me? We need some water. So what I want to hear from God is to tell me where to drill. I can make some wells, right? That's the more common sense that makes sense to me if you tell me where to drill. And God is telling me, no, you strike a rock. I'm like, don't you see the people so mad at me? And if I hit the rock, it's going to make them even more mad. They're going to be thinking, are you kidding me? Are you playing with us? Are you joking around? So think about it. Being a leader in Moses' position, I see that it's really, really tough, right? So do you think people want to be leaders in the society and community, yes or no? No? Well, ever since I came to stage in 2007, and I noticed there's an election every 4 years. And I'm not trying to get into political, don't worry. I just noticed that there were people trying to be a president of this country, and in order for them to be nominated, they have to go through this GOP debate and everything. And I thought that it was really interesting that they were even attacking each other, even though they're from the same party. I've never heard any news saying that, because there are many elections besides presidential election. We vote for the mayors, governors, even the sheriffs and everything. I've never heard the news that we got no candidate for this election. I've never heard that. But I see that people want to be in this position. Why is that? Because those positions are the positions of power. You're going to have a lot of power to control money, all the interest, the special interest. You're going to have a big influence of the organization that you're leading, and anywhere you go, you're going to have this attention. I would like to have that kind of power. It would be really fun. I mean, think about it. Wherever I go, I got this bodyguard following me. You know, I'm gonna be somebody, right? But then when I see the leadership that God has chosen, there is a big difference between the secular leaders and God's chosen leaders. I mean, look at the journey of Moses. What kind of benefit has Moses like had like enjoying like from his position? I only see him getting attacked. I see him going through the persecutions. So now when he's going through this journey, in chapter 18, this is what's going on. And Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back with her two sons, of whom the name of one was Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. And the name of the other was Eleazar, for he said, the God of my father was my help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. So look at those names. How many of you know my Korean name? I think I mentioned several times. But my Korean name is Sungsup, and it has a meaning. Do you remember the meaning of my name? Success by effort. Meaning, I would never buy Mega Million because there's no luck in my life. My success comes with effort. I gotta work for it. That's my parents' will for my life. So when you give a name to your child, you know there is certain like the meanings that you want this child to grow up in a certain way. And Moses gave his son the names like this. I was a stranger in a foreign land. Does it tell you like what was going on in Moses' heart when he was away from home? And he was away from home for how many years? 40 years. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to Korea, and it's been 5 years since I've seen, my family, my parents. I'm very excited. And for those 5 years, it was like, I'm like, this is way overdue. I miss my Korean food. Not the one that I'm getting in Koreatown, but the ones that I'm getting in Korea. And Moses must have missed the food that he was eating growing up. He missed the childhood friends, his families, but he could not see them. But then don't forget that he still remembered God's hand delivering him from the hands of Pharaoh. What was the meaning of the second son? The God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And this is what Moses had to go through to get ready to be a leader. The God's chosen leader. And as soon as when Moses started this journey, like taking his people out of Egypt, he was alone because it says that here, he has sent her back with her two sons. So for the safety issue, Moses was alone. His family was not with Moses while Moses was going through all those dramas with his people. So now when in this timing, his family came to visit. Verse 5. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. Now he has said to Moses, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons with her. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, bowed down and kissed him, and they asked each other about their well-being, and they went into the tent. In those difficult times for Moses, family was the anchor for him to be able to sustain. Moses had a supportive family at home. He had a wife who respected him as a leader of the house, even though she didn't always agree with Moses. Building a supportive community is also built from each household. Do you remember when Moses was called, his second son was not circumcised? So the angel asked Moses to, hey, circumcise your son. And the wife said, no, we're not going to do that. There was too much blood when we had the first son here. So what happened? The angel was about to kill Moses, right? So Zipporah was upset. She threw the knife and the blood's in your hand. She was upset. But even despite of that disagreement, Zipporah respected Moses, supporting him as a priest at home. And because of that, Moses was able to carry this burden. Next verse. And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardship that had come upon them on the way, and how the Lord had delivered them. Then Jethro rejoiced for all the good which the Lord had done for Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, blessed be the Lord, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and who has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. So Moses, shared 2 things. The first thing, all the good things, like manna, pillar of fire and cloud, water from the rock. But at the same time, he also shared all the hardships, all the dramas, all the persecutions. But then his experience, how God delivered him from all those challenges. And I think the praises come from God's deliverance from the trials. If there was no trial in my life, I wonder if I would ever have a praise. Because when we call something called testimony, it means that you had hardships in your life, right? That's why there's a testimony. And those trials and hardships, they teach us how to be faithful in the midst of those hardships. And many times we expect God, we pray to God that, Lord, I want my life to be comfortable, perfect, no worries. But that's not how God works. Why is that? Because we have to remember, Satan is always out there. Are you following? So our life is all about going through the snares. And as we walk with the faith, we experience God's delivering hands from all the snares of Satan. And in order for us to sustain those trials, we need supportive communities. Verse 11, now I know that the Lord is greater than all the gods. For in the very thing in which they behaved proudly, he was above them. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and other sacrifices to offer to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. So all those trials, but sharing God's delivering hand, what did they learn? They learned this. Now I know. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all the gods. We have many gods that we can serve. We can serve money God. We can serve God of like position, God of power. But out of all those gods, it is important for us to learn that God is greater than all the other gods. Otherwise, we will continually go after the money God. Something like, my career God. And after Jethro heard all those hardships, did he complain? Did he say, how come God did this to you? I gave my daughter to you. When I gave my daughter to you, I wanted you to take care of my daughter. And God is letting you go through all these things? No, that's not what Jethro is doing. What he's doing after he heard all these trials, dramas that Moses had gone through, but then through that dramas, God delivered Moses. And what did he do? He offered a burnt offerings and other sacrifices, meaning he worshiped God. Are you following? He worshiped God out of all those trials. And after he worshiped God, now Jethro is able to witness Moses for the first time how he's leading out his people. Verse 13, and so it was on the next day, then Moses said to judge the people. And the people stood before Moses from morning till evening. So when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did for the people, he said, what is this thing that you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit and all the people stand before you from morning until evening? And Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one and another, and I make known the statutes of God and his laws. So why did the people come to Moses? It says, people come to me to inquire of God. So in their mind, Moses was some sort of a special figure that he had this direct connection with God. So, okay, no other person in our camp being able to do so, so we're going to come to you. And Moses thinking that I'm the only one. So everybody came to him. How many people came out of Egypt at that time? How many people? It's about 600,000 people. And now you have a one governor. So how big is like 600,000 people, the population-wise? So I looked up, and it says that Las Vegas has about 650,000 population. So like the size of Las Vegas in terms of population, now you have only one person dealing with your petitions and complaints. Can you imagine how slow your petitions until your petitions get heard? And when I read this, I'm like, no wonder why Israelites are so quick to get upset. Because they filed their complaint and they never heard from Moses because everything was so backed up. Right? So when there's like a dire, like, immediate need, people are getting upset. So verse 17, so Moses' father-in-law said to him, the thing that you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out. For this thing is too much for you. You are not able to perform it by yourself. And first time, the father-in-law comes and giving him a constructive criticism. Straight up saying, this is not good. You're not doing it right. You're going to get burned out. Verse 19, listen now to my voice. I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people so that you may bring the difficulties to God, and you shall teach them the statutes and the laws and show them the way in which they must walk in the work they must do. So what is the counsel here? Moses, don't do everything by yourself. Teach people, train people, and they should step up and help you. Verse 21, moreover, you shall select from all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. What are the qualities of those men? Number one, God-fearing man. Number two, man of the truth. Number three, men who hate covetousness. And then you place over them to be rulers of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Meaning, you got to have a structure in your leadership. And this applies to us today as we are going through this journey. Would you agree that the journey you and I are taking today is also the exodus from this place to our heavenly kingdom? Yes or no? Then we gotta be organized. You can just do things randomly. So we have a structure, right? We have church leadership. We have elders, head elder, elders, head deacon, head deaconess, and deacons, and department leaders, and also volunteers under those department leaders, things like that. But it says here, you got to have those qualities, fear God, and man of truth, hating covetousness. And verse 22, and let them judge the people at all times, that it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they themselves shall judge. So it will be easier for you, for they will bear the burden with you. If you do this thing, and God's to command you, then you will be able to endure, and all these people will also go to their place in peace. So I was called to be a pastor for this faith community. And the scripture is telling me that, Ron, you cannot do it by yourself. Would you agree with me? Are you following? It means that we need you to participate, step up, and join the ministry. Otherwise, we all gonna get burned out. We're not gonna go home in peace. We're just gonna get mad at each other. And I noticed that, because different churches have different dynamics, different countries have different dynamics, and certain culture, pastor has this ultimate power. Everything has to go through the pastor. Pastor has to say the final word. But some other culture, Now their leadership working together, things like that. And I'm not going to say which one is right, which one is wrong. I'm just going to say what the Bible is teaching us today. And it's clear telling me that, Ron, yeah, you are called to be a leader for this community, but you are not going to do everything by yourself. And certain things here, I don't even have to know. Right? Yeah, the people, they're going to take care of the small things, and and when there's the big matters, they bring that to you. But sometimes the leaders, like delegation is kind of like hard for us, right? Because when I first became a program leader for the canvassing program, Gabriella just finished her the canvassing program for the summer, and she was I think, junior leader, and I was a program head, meaning under me, I had co-leaders, junior leaders, student. So I had about 30 kids under me, and for the 10 weeks, I'm the king there. I set the rules. And I didn't know about like how to delegate and everything. And first summer, yes, I pulled it off. The number was good. And when you become a leader, you have this ambition. I want to make this program really good. Perfect program. I want to have a good reputation out of this. And that made me to micromanage everything. And through those experiences, God taught me how to pick the battles. You got to pick the battles. You're not going to micromanage every single thing. It's not going to work. Yeah, the number was there, but the kids were not happy with me. Are you following? Yeah, the kids were not happy. I mean, they were bringing money. We're selling books, but they were not happy with me. But it is a temptation, like, because, it feels good when I say no. It feels good. I feel like I have a power. Nope, you can do that. But that's not how it works when it comes to God's business. Don't micromanage everything. It's going to make your job difficult. Verse 24, so Moses heeded the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. So they judged the people all at all times. The hard cases they brought to Moses, but they judged every small case themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way to his own land. Moses, he was humble enough to listen to his father-in-law. Because sometimes, you delegate something, some people take that as a sign of weakness. Oh, you're not a strong leader, right? But this is a great example how God wants to establish his leadership among his people. In order for us to grow our church, we need to have a structure. And in this case here, chapter 18, Moses, he was able to find men who were qualified, who were willing to step up to support Moses in his leadership. But think about it. What if Moses was not able to find those quality men among his people? Right? I mean, you have 600,000 people doesn't mean that you can find quality men. Like Sodom and Gomorrah, there's so many people living in the city, but they did not have not even 10 righteous people were not even in that city. We need, all of us, you and me, to have those qualities, to serve God. God-fearing person. Man of truth. And how many times do you think today that it is hard for us to find something like somebody who's willing to stand for the truth. When it becomes political, we want to just kind of back up, like, I'm not going to be involved there. But at the end time, things will be political. When we talk about all these signs of times and everything, it will be done through the political powers. We got to have a backbone to stand on our ground regardless of any climate that we're under. And I wonder, what if Moses could not find all those quality men? And I think Moses, he would have given up long before they reached the promised land. Moses would have said, I can't do this anymore. I'm burned out. I'm upset. I mean, Moses, he got upset later on too, right? Even after he had all the helpers and everything, people kept complaining, murmuring. Moses did not demonstrate the character of Christ. He was angry. He was mad. Through this chapter, I think we got four lessons that we can apply in our lives. Number one, leadership is a shared responsibility. Just as Jethro advised Moses, leaders in our churches and communities should recognize that leadership is not a solo endeavor. It is a shared responsibility that benefits from the collective wisdom and abilities of the body of Christ. Number two, delegation is a sign of strength, not weakness. Delegating tasks doesn't mean leaders are incapable. Rather, it demonstrates wisdom and trust. By empowering others, leaders can foster growth and build a vibrant community. Number three, seek godly counsel. Jethro's advice was rooted in faith and wisdom. As leaders, we must seek godly counsel from those who walk in the ways of the Lord, just as Moses did with his father-in-law. Number four, rest and renewal. Moses' willingness to accept Jethro's counsel allowed him to find rest and renewal. It is essential for leaders to take care of themselves, both spiritually and physically, to continue serving effectively. Well, last weekend was Labor Day weekend, and then we studied God needs you to establish his kingdom. I'm not saying this to hammer people who are not participating. I'm saying this because God is reaching out to us. Jesus said, then he said to his disciples, the harvest indeed is plentiful, but the laborers are few. If you read the whole chapter here, when Jesus said this, right before Jesus said this, he preached at the synagogues, and multitude, so many people came out to listen to Jesus' sermon. And then Jesus looked at them with compassion, and in his eyes, they were like lost sheep without shepherd. And Jesus seeing the people in the church and saying that the harvest is indeed plentiful, but the laborers are few. God needs you today. He's calling you because without your support, without your participation, without you volunteering for God's ministry, this ministry cannot last. People will burn out. We need you. We need more of you who are willing to support this faith community, this church that we have a privilege to be able to gather and worship. God sets up his leaders and leadership in his kingdom. The way that he's working is not tyrannical. God is not a dictator. We say that Jesus is my friend, right? God is our friend. But the question is how the friendship works. What is friendship? About 6 months ago, my neighbor asked me for a Wi-Fi password. I gave it to him because it didn't cost me anything, but because I got along with him. Yesterday, I was walking home and he was at the door, and I stopped to talk a bit as usual, and he happily told me he now had Netflix. At that, I jokingly said, I work hard, barely have a time to watch TV, but it's great if you could lend me your password to watch some shows. I'd appreciate it. A voice was heard in the distance. It was his wife sitting in a car. We cannot give it to him because I am the one who pays for it and I can't share it. The man apologized. I said there was no problem. We kept talking about other things. Shortly thereafter, his wife came out to call him. She seemed very nervous. She said the television wasn't working. My neighbor came into the house and I looked out the window. After a few minutes, he and his wife came to call me and told me that the Wi-Fi wasn't working. The password wasn't going in. I looked at them and said, I changed my password because it's me paying and I can't share it. The wife turned red and tried to say something, but I said, ma'am, I have my network and you have your Netflix. Everything is fine. Everyone is happy. They turned around and left, closing the door. They never spoke to me again. And this story isn't mine. But here is the lesson I learned from it. Friendship must be mutual. Affection must be mutual. Sharing must be mutual. The purpose of our life to fulfill God's will. That is our purpose, fulfilling God's will. And we know that Christ died for us. And he's my friend. And I want to serve him. But in reality, it is not always easy. Why is it? Because we are hurt and broken. We don't want to step up when we are discouraged, when we were let down many times. We feel the burden, heavy burden on our shoulders. And Jesus says, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. When I feel broken, I try to think of Jesus Christ, who is willing to drink the cup that he didn't want to take. But he did it for me. But his soul was broken in the Garden of Gethsemane, right before the crucifixion. His soul was broken. His body was beaten. He was tired and weary, but he did that for you and me. Mary met Jesus in the worst time in her life. She was broken and hurt. But when she received Jesus, when she accepted Jesus, her soul was healed. And later, she was able to minister Jesus with her alabaster oil. I want to appeal you today as I conclude. Come to Jesus. Seek our Savior. Wrestle with God with His Word, and He will restore you. He will give you power to support His kingdom, His church, His community. You will have a power to support your family, your loved ones, and the faith community that you are participating. And this is a song about Mary, who was broken. But when she accepted Jesus Christ, she was healed. Her soul was restored. In the same way, you and I can serve Him so that we become true friend with Jesus Christ.